Yeah, so before understanding today's concepts, let's try to recollect it, what we were understanding yesterday, and then we'll continue with today's objective. Yeah, yesterday we were going through that, demonstration of the load balancer. Yes, how do we create a load balancer with the app type of load balancer we are doing that, because that requires the more rules compared with the network based load balancer. Network load balancer straightforward, but that uses the TCP/UDP protocol. But app load balancer, which we have path-based routing also. So that's point of view. Yes, we were choosing that app load balancer to understand the more rules. But what are the main configuration we are observing this while creating load balancer is, one, it was with the listener side. Listener, that is, yes, the how do you want to connect the users and which port, HTTP protocol with 80 port or 81 port or HTTPS protocol or 443 port. So which port that do you want to define that as a listener? And this listener, is it internal or internet? That means do you want to use it internal or external? That's we can define it. And do you want to support this load balancer only for IPv4 and IP6? That is IPv4 or IPv6, like a dual stack, we can select it, those configurations. And then coming to this the backend side, yes, first you need to define the network and network availability zones. Yes, which availability zones we want to map it to this load balancer in that region. Yeah, defining that availability zones, and then defining that's one more the point that is about security group. Yes, in the listener side, which users or from which IP addresses that you want to allow that on that particular port. The security group has to be configured for the load balancer level and as well as EC2 instances level also. But EC2 instances you are defining is nothing but how do you define it is target group. Yes, load balancer will be attached with the target group. In the target group, we will manage that EC2 instances. But the EC2 instances, I mean, this load balancer, how do you want to, in the target group, how do you want to manage that these instances? Do you want to identify on the basis of the instance, or do you want to identify on the basis of the IP address, or do you want to use it for the Lambda functions, or do you want to use it for the other load balancer, the target group? There are all the options which we are observing that while creating the target group. Then we were defining about the health check options. Yes, okay, once such instances have been identified, in that instances, how do you want to check the health? Yes, on these EC2 instances, what are the port that you want to verify that port you need to define in the health option, and as well as path also, path, that is route we are defining. And then we have some attributes, that is interval, timeout options, healthy threshold, unhealthy threshold, success case, the status codes. Yeah, they're all the health options which are defining that on the target level. Yeah, instance based and the health options. Then what we are defining this other things, instances, that is we need to register the instances also, right? Yeah, we are adding that the manually the instances to the group, the one by one taking and adding that to the EC2 instances. So then finally, that's we are going to attaching this target group to this load balancer. And once load balancer has been created for that listener, we can define the multiple rules, right? Listener, in the listener level, in the load balancer, we can define the multiple rules, path-based, with a so-and-so path to which target group that we want to route it. Path and forward options we are observing that, the rules. Yeah, listener level defining the rules. If the users is received, okay, which target group? If the reports are received, which target group? Or if that default, to which target group? That is one option. And session stickiness, defining at the target group level, We can define at the load balance level also, but we are defining at target group level. As application requirement point of view, we can define it. Yeah, these are all some important points we are talking that on the load balancer. Is it clear about that? If you are good with that, so type that the CLR or C in the chat window. Then we'll continue with the next two concept. Quickly, everyone. Usha, Ajay, Sushma. Okay. What about others? If you have any errors, any the queries or questions, please let me know. Did you try to practice that? How many of you completed up to that the volume, the labs, EBS volumes? For leave it off this one, the current load balancer. Maybe yesterday only we discussed, right? But even though that's also planned and completed, that's good. But until at least the volume.
So yeah, until volume I practice are super good. So this load balancer I have yet to launch it.
Okay. Okay. Good. I try to start this one also. Yeah, Sushma done. Yes. Okay. Up to volume you have done. Okay. Yeah. So take that the fish. That's additional time on the basis of about your regular activities. Yes, you need to spend some additional time on this as well as not just attending the classes. Yes, spend some time and do the practice. That gives us more confidence than just listening the concept and busy with another activities. Okay, good. And we are observing one more important point. Have the clarity on 4xx type of errors and 5xx type of errors. Yeah, yesterday we were observing that the 5xx especially 503 service not available, 502 bad gateway. So if you see this the 5xx, then we need to get ready to check it about the backend services health checkups. That means those services are up and running it or not, and the applications which are running on the servers, the application status healthy or not. So the service health checkups are the very important. Or from the load balancer, any networks have been dropped, or services are the down. So load balance level, we can, that is a targets section. In the targets, we can check the health of instances, right? Whether the health is okay or not. Yeah, 5xx errors have that high attention. But 4xx errors, that is 403, 404, mostly sometimes we say that 404 page cannot be displayed. That means the URL which you are trying to access it, the URL is already deployed, and the URL which you are given that is a valid URL or not. That's we need to check it. Or if it's the 403 forbidden, that means the user who is trying to access the resources is not having the permissions. So that is user level session, user level. But service level, we don't need to look into that. That is user from which network he is accessing about it, and which resource he is trying to access that, whether he's having the permissions on it or not. That's kind of the evaluation is required, troubleshooting point of view. But 5xx, if you see that, okay, up to that, the load balancer, it is good. But from the load balancer, something is happened. Yes, that is a habit, some kind of attention on this. Status codes very important, 4xx and 5xx. 2xx, that is, that's normally we don't see that. That will be used by the development team internally to manage the status codes. And the 3xx, that is the redirections. So there are some important status codes like a 2xx, that is OK status. 3xx redirection. Redirection, suppose example, if you just talk it, you have logged into that the Amazon portal, and whenever you are the doing this like payment options, it will be redirected to the payment gateways, right? That means from the Amazon portal, it is redirected. And during the redirection, we see that messages don't refresh the browser or don't close the browser or don't use the back buttons, some kind of the message. How the messages are they are managing that? So application team, they use the 3xx status codes and they handle that displaying that message during the redirections of the request. Yeah, 2xx, 3xx, that is mostly developers, but as engineers or that is support engineers or administrators point of view, we should know 4xx and 5xx. 5xx services down, check it about it, service health checkups and the networks from the load balancer to the backend services. And 4xx is nothing but check it about it, user side, the URLs, and from which network he is trying to access it, the network is it allowing to him it or not, and as well as whatever the application URL which he is trying to access, that application is, the URL is it available or not. Yeah, these points, that's the client side, mostly we need to consider on that. Yeah, these are all some important troubleshooting, the points which we should know by using these status codes. And if you go to the load balancer monitoring section, you can see that 4xx errors, 5xx errors, how many it is triggered on the load balancer. You can check it about it. If you have this the 5xx, then you need to have some attention on it. Okay, good. So that's about some points understanding on the load balancer. Are you clear this? So let's move into
Yes, sir.
this. Yeah, cool. Thank you. So let's move into this next concept, that is about scaling groups. Yeah, yesterday we were registering that instances manually, right? We were creating that using the launch template, 2 instances or 3, and while defining that networks, we are defining that where it has to be launched, all those things we are doing that the manually, registering the instances to the target group. But if you have the suppose RiseEngineTechnologies.com application, that is, we don't see that the heavy load, always some consistent load you will be having that. The we are good. So we can take that 2 instances and we can set up that application with the load balancer and load balancer with the DNS name, that is the RiseEngineTechnologies.com. But if you go for like e-commerce based applications like Flipkart or Amazon, the load on about our websites and applications can change it, right? It is not constant. So the advantage why we are moving to the cloud is we can create and get the servers very quickly, right? Yeah, so one of the important concept is if the constant load, if you have that application, then okay, we are good. Even you can take it the cloud and you can register that, take the instances and you can register it and you can use it that. But if you have unpredictable load on the applications, then you should not go for that, the manually registering that instances and adding to the target group of the load balancer. So we need to use it some dynamic approach instead of the static approach. Yesterday we were doing static. Yeah, the goal of that auto scaling group is to adding the more instances, that is a scale out at the EC2 instances to match and increase load to handle that. Or scaling, that is remove the EC2 instances to match a decreased load. Whenever the load is decreased, then why do you want to unnecessarily managing that additional resources? Then remove it. Or if the load required, yes, add it. Yeah, scale out, scale in, and ensure that and make sure, yes, we have the minimum and maximum number of machines running. Yes, on the base of, whenever we are observing this in the real time, suppose if you analyze it some 10 days of that, some activities, then you will be knowing that during which time the application is having high load, during that which time application is having the low loads. And if the high load to handle that, how many instances that is required, and a low load point of view, yes, like midnight, so the early morning, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, who will use that during the time application? So what is the minimum resources that is required during that time? Minimum. But if you have some offers, yes, that is a high load. That is a maximum. Yeah, analyze about your application, the minimum and maximum number of machines which are running, and automatically register the new instances to a load balancer. That is also important, right? So if you are adding to the instance, is nothing but that instance should have the complete application. Already we have some, like, let's assume that 5 instances in the group. 6th instance you are adding to the group to handle that application is nothing but 5 instances, whatever the state we have, same state should contain the 6th instance also. That means application, application configuration, everything it should be same. And any instance which has been added, that has to be registered with the load balancer. And any instance which is removed from that group, then that has to be unregistered from the load balancer. Yeah, that is also, it should be done dynamically. Because if we just add that instance to the group, but that instance is not registered with the load balancer is not routing the requests. Even if you have this additional instance, what is the need of it? So auto scaling group is going to helpful all these features. So how does we can define it is important. Some properties is, as we're talking, the minimum instances how many, maximum instances how many, and the desired instances how many. That means during starting time, how many instances that you want to launch it, but on the base of the current load and the demand point of view, how many maximum instances that can be increased, how many minimum instances it can be decreased. That's we can define that in the auto scaling group. The minimum size, yes, if I define that the minimum size one instance. Or next we are talking about it desired state. So normal, like whenever it is in the normal load, yes, how many the instances. Let's assume that you have defined the 3 instances. And a maximum you have defined. Let's assume that something, so the 7 or 8 you have defined. So whenever you, the target group is started, it is going to start with the desired capacity. But on the base of the load is increasing. Suppose the load I have defined on the base of the CPU. Let's assume that the CPU process units. Okay, if it is reached at the 70% on all these instances, right? It should not be on the single instance. If all these instances, the CPU reached the 70%, then that means the load, in the particular consistent time, suppose something 5 minutes, it is the same load is continuing that. That means the load is increasing. Then what we need to do? We need to add it additional instances. But how many maximum that is required? You need to define the maximum size. So whenever we are talking about it, auto scaling group, three properties are important. What are those three properties? Minimum size, desired size, and the maximum size. Whenever it is launching that, it is going to use the desired capacity. But on the base of the current load, it is going to decreasing or it is going to increasing that. So this one we can say that increasing that instances from the desired to the maximum. That's we can say the scale out. But scale out it is performing or scale in it is performing. Suppose desired I have defined like lesser than that CPU utilization if it is at 30%, that continues 5 minutes. That means there is no load on my instances, right? 30%, very that's or 20%. You can define the KPIs. Suppose CPU utilization is continuing on this target group 5 minutes with 30%. That means there is no load. I can decrease that and I can remove that one instance. Then I will be having the two instances. Then the load will be distributed. Still that is continuing with the same 30% on these two instances. Then remove one more also. Then it is coming to the minimum size. That is the scale in and scale out operations. So whenever we are defining the auto scaling group, three important properties. Yesterday, we have created manually two instances which are required in one A and one B by choosing the data networks and all that, VPCs explicitly. But in the auto scaling group, yes, we can define that in which availability zones that can be launched and how many minimum it can be launched. I mean, minimum is scale in policy point of view. And a desired, yes, constantly how many do you want to manage it? But on the base of the policies which are defined, that is a scale in policy, scale out policy, that is CPU utilization, if it is continuing with the 70% for the 5 minutes, then scale out the instance. If the CPU utilization on this group, if it is continuing that 30% the 5 minutes, then decrease one instance. Why do I want that? Only 30%, then why do I need the three instances? And additional cost, right? But whenever we have the high load, so 70% is more, then don't wait until the 100, right? You need to have some margin also. Because if you define that the scale out policy on the 100% if it is reached, then launching the new instance during that time, remaining instances which will get failure will crash because of the high load. So you need to have that some KPS range also. Yeah, auto scaling group, as we are talking about it, auto scaling group is nothing that's target group yesterday which we defined. Target group with a static. Today we are talking about it that group with a scaling features. This is dynamic group. But finally it has to be attached with the load balancer. Suppose I have defined the desired three instances. But these three instances should be registered with the load balancer or not? Yes. Three instances that have been registered. But as we have defined the policy that is CPU utilization is 70% continuing for the 5 minutes. Then scale out. Scale out is nothing but adding the new instance. Okay, add it to that group, one more instance. With the same replica, right? It should have the same replica of this instance. Already these are three instances, whatever the concept we have with that replica. That is templates. Templates are going to help with that. We use the template. Okay, new instance has been launched, but this has to be registered with the load balancer or not? Yes. What are the load which is increasing on this? Now, the load balancer, once it is identified the new instance, it is going to start distributing the load to this instance also. So it is suppose as a team leader and a team member concept. Suppose now we have the 3 members and we have that heavy load on the team. Then team leader, what he has to do? He has to get that additional resource, adding that. Now, whatever the load which is distributing the team members, it has to be distributed to that other member. That's somewhat reducing the load on these 3 members. The same concept. So on the base of the load, the instances scale out, but scale out instance has to be registered with the load balancer. And if it is a scale in, that means removing that instance. If the instance is removed, then that has to be unregistered with the load balancer. This is also important. Yeah, so finally, if we just talk it that auto scaling group, if we are creating that, what are the main attributes is launch template is required. So template required. Template contains all that points, right? What are those points? AMI and instance type. Yes, which AMI is required? What is the type of instance? EC2 user data, that is during the boot up time. That is any new instance which is launching, yes, it has to boot with the custom data as well as volumes, security groups, key pairs. So all these things which we need to define in the template, and that template we need to use it during the scale out or scale in operation. Scale in, okay, removing the instance, we don't need that any inputs, but scale out, you are launching that instance, but whatever the instance launching that, which AMI has to use it? What is the type of instance? What is the volume of it? What is the security group? What is the key pair? All that inputs required or not? That's we can define in the template. Yes, template is a main input for the auto scaling group, which contains all this data. Already we are using the template yesterday to launch the instances. And another important attributes, as we're talking about it, scale in operations to perform at the minimum size, scale out operation to perform that maximum size, and a desired capacity. How many do you want to use it that normally? And the networks and subnets, yes, definitely. In which VPC and what are the availability zones? Yes, what are the instances which you are launching? Suppose if I define that desired capacity as a 2, those 2 instances should not be launched in the same availability zone. One instance in one availability zone, another instance in another availability zone. Right? So those subnets you need to define. In which subnets that you want to launch it that. And we need to define that load balancer, the routing the request to these EC2 instances. And we need to configure the scaling policies as we are talking about it. Scale out policy, scale in policy. Scale out example as we are talking CPU utilization, if it is 70% or 80%. If it is continuing that the 5 minutes, then do that adding the instance. The scale in policy, if the CPU utilization is less than or equal to 30% and it is continuing that some specific duration, then remove that one instance from the group. Those kind of the policies we need to define it. If the policy is met, then it is going to take that action. Are you following the points? Is it good? I mean, are you clear about all these points? Auto scaling group behavior and important attributes to create it. Please use the chat window and type that ASG auto scaling group. Yeah, good to see this response. Okay, but one more important point we are saying about it scale in policy or scale out policies define it to add the instances or remove the instances on the basis of some metric. What is the metric? CPU utilization. We are talking that is a metric. But CPU utilization current is it having the 20%, 30% or 40% or 70%? How you are monitoring that? We are not going to monitor it. So we are going to take the help of the alarms. CloudWatch alarms, a monitoring system. Keep on checking about the metrics. And if the metric is reached the particular condition, as we have defined like 70% of the CPU utilization, then this alarm is going to trigger to perform the action, that is adding instance or removing instance. If it's a scale out policy, if it's a scale out policy. The EC2 instance adding or removing on the basis of like metrics, but who will monitor these metrics? The CPU utilization of these two instances is reached at 70% or not to perform the scale out policy. So we need to have the monitoring system, that is alarms which we can configure it. These alarms keep on monitoring about it, the scaling features, and the particular metric is reached the particular condition, then it is going to trigger the action, that is a scale out or scaling. So here we take the help of the CloudWatch alarms. Yes, it is possible to scale any auto scaling group based on the CloudWatch alarms. An alarm monitors a metric, such as average CPU. And metrics are computed for the overall auto scaling group instances. Metric is not on the instance level. So all the instances, if the metric is satisfied, then it is going to apply. So based on the alarm, we can create scale out policies or we can create scaling policies. But what are the main the rules that we can use it here while defining the scale out or scaling is on the basis of the average CPU utilization, we can define it, the policies, rules, or number of requests on the ELB per instance. That means the load on the instance which is routed from the ELB based, we can define the scale out scale in policies. If the load is something which is reached some specific count, then do that scale out. Or if the load is decreased from the ELB to the instances per instance, then scale in. Or average network in, that means network data which is receiving to the container, the EC2 instances. The average network out, that means the data which is transmitting from the EC2 instances in the group. They're all the group wise metrics, not the instance. If the group contains 10 systems, all the 10 systems average it is going to take that. It is not on like one instance which is CPU utilization 70%, another EC2 instance which is having the CPU utilization 20%. Then you should not do that, right? Yeah, these rules are easier to set up and can make more sense. And yeah, so that's one more important point, rules defining to perform the scale out and scaling. Yeah, these are all the main inputs of the auto scaling group. Yes, let's look into that, the creation time. So how do we use it and how do you perform using all these attributes? Are you clear at these points? Now let's move into that, how to create auto scaling group. Let me log into my app in this like AWS Management Console. the AWS team, they keep on changing that the user interfaces. So whatever you see that in the lab guides, the interfaces, and you don't see now because they are keep on updating that their user interfaces. So sometimes yes, they need to, but objective is the same. The concepts, whatever we are talking, the concepts are the same, but sometimes in the different menu section somewhere you will find it that. Okay, so let's talk it that yes, we don't want to launch the instances manually. We would like to configure this through the auto scaling group. But auto scaling group you are defining is nothing but what is the main input? Template is the input. So already yesterday we were creating the template. That is the version 3. It's very difficult working with that AWS management console. Okay, so this is a launch template 3 which we are using and which is having instance type T2 micro. Okay, we are good. And storage is volume. The default anyway is taking that 8 GB. We didn't add it any explicitly. And advanced details, user data is important for us. Yes, this is the user data which we are defining. Okay, the template is ready now. We are going to use it version 3. Yeah, create auto scaling group. Let's go ahead. And auto scaling group name. So this one we call it as web servers auto scaling group. Yes, what is the basic input for it? Because all the instances, whatever it is going to create in this auto scaling group, it should have the same configuration. But how to manage it with the same configuration? That is using the template. Yes, this is the template, but this is on the version, right? Yes, anyway, default which we were enabling that in the version section 3. Or if you like to apply the 3 to 1, yes, you can do that. Let's go for the 3, which is having that the user data is advanced one. Yeah, so the template and template version. Which version do you want to use it to launch the instances which are going to define in this group? Go ahead to the next. And yes, the instances, whatever you are going to launch it, in which VPC that you want to launch it. Yes, only the, now currently we are working with the default VPC. Yeah, the VPC. And in which availability zones that you want to launch the instances. So now we are applying the scaling features. This is the horizontal based scaling, that is adding instances or removing instances. But this horizontal scaling with high availability is also required, right? High availability you are talking is nothing but choose the multiple subnets. So this is in 1A and this is in 1B. So now that if I say this is like 10 instances, those 10 instances will be distributed into these 2 different data centers that will be taken care by auto scaling group. So in which subnets that do you want to launch it? Subnet is nothing but indirectly availability zone. Yes, 1A and 1B. In this VPC, these 2 are available. And as per the region in that VPC, yes, you can choose it, the availability zones which we have. And instance type requirements. If you'd like to override that template, yes, you can customize it, or open this and you can override the template configurations. But I'm good with that. Yes, type T2 micro and version which are using the 3 and user data is good. And key pair. Yes. So if you'd like to customize anything, you can do customization here also, but we are good with that. Yes, as we are talking about it, we need to attach that auto scaling group with the load balancer. Yeah, load balancer do we have already? you don't want the load balancer, then you can go ahead with no load balancer. Or if you have this already, the existing load balancer, yes, you can attach to an existing load balancer. That means this target group, indirectly it is going to create a target group. But this is the dynamic one, auto scaling group. Yesterday, which we were adding that is a static one. Yeah, if you have this already existing load balancer, you can attach it. But I was removing that load balancer. Let me attach to a new load balancer. So now it is asking us to create a load balancer. Yes, I need that application load balancer and give this load balancer name. This is web servers LB load balancer. And you want to define internal facing or internet facing? Internet facing. And network mapping. Yes, there are the two availability zones. We are going to use it. And a listener. Yes, if the request which are receiving the port 80, we need to forward to the target group. So forwarded to the target group. But it is not there. So that's the target group, existing target group. This will come back to that. And adding the tags, you can add the tags to here. And health checks, how do you want to apply the health checks? Yeah, you can enable that EC2 based health checkups. Do you want to do that, or do you want to do that health checks by using that load balancing health checkups? Yeah, so turn on the elastic load balancing health checkups. Yeah, so EC2 auto scaling will start to detect and act on the health checks performed by elastic load balancing. Yeah, to avoid unexpected terminations, first verify the settings of this health checking in the load balancer console. That's fine. And yeah, group metrics is required. As we are talking about it, instead of applying that on the EC2 instance level, we need to have the metrics to perform the scale in, scale out, enable group wise metrics. And health check grace period that is showing that 5 minutes. That is keep on verifying about it. Yes, this time period delays the first health check until about your instances finish initializing. During the initialization time, suppose instance has been launched in the scale out. So once it is joined to the group, what is the time it is going to wait for it is 5 minutes. It is going to give the time. Until that, it is not going to route the requests. But we are launching the EC2 instance that is required only 1 minute. 1 minute, the service is getting ready. Then change it to that as per about our application loading time. So some application takes like 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes on the base of data loading, cache system loading. Yes. But some instances which are lightweight, yes, which will start immediately. So on the base of that, the grace period which is required for that instance before routing that, the request from the load balancer, because it is starting the EC2 instance, it requires some time, right? That time you can define it here. That is a health check grace period. Well, let me have it something 120. That is 2 minutes, more enough. Okay, so that is about target group. But here, target group is not defined. That is one thing. The remaining all these properties we are trying to understand it yesterday itself. So let me go ahead to do this next, but it is asking that target group, but we don't have the target group which is created. Let's go ahead and create a target group. So what is the target group name? We'll define this is web server TG, target group identification. Yeah, so it is going to creating and adding that instances adding we are doing with the auto scaling group. So now if we just try to understand it, instances with auto scaling group, we have added. So if you go to the back step, so we have defined that all the listener and network interfaces, and we have created one target group. In this target group, yesterday we were registering the instances. But now today, I'm not going to register the instances manually. That is with the auto scaling group, we are doing that. And this target group is attaching to this load balancer, which we are creating that now. This is the internet facing. And there are the two subnets we are mapping that. Even instances we are launching also with the auto scaling group in these two subnets, right? That must be same. Auto scaling group availability zones and this ALB or NLB, whatever you are taking that NLB availability zones also must be the same. But by default, anyway, it has been selected. You see that episode 1A, 1B as per the auto scaling. Yeah, so these properties, let's go ahead to the next option. That is, as we're talking that the one more important configuration, that is minimum, maximum, and desired capacity. So let me define that the desired capacity, I need the 2, minimum is 1, and maximum capacity, that is a 3. That means whenever we are launching that, or whenever we configure this auto scaling group, so we are going to have the 2 desired instances, but on the base of the policies which are executing, that is scale out or scaling, it is bringing back to the minimum or maximum. Yeah, now here, the one more important section, you can see the scaling policies. So default, what is the policy that we have? This is targeted tracking scaling policy. That means this is the dynamically, the auto scaling group is tracking that the metrics of the instances, and it is going to automatically deciding about it whether it has to be applied the scale out or scale in. We don't have the control here. But I'll explain this. What are the different types of the policies are available whenever we are configuring that auto scaling group. We'll come back to that. So if you go for that, now we have only one option, right? To choose it. Do you want to apply the scaling policies or not? Yes, targeted tracking scaling policy. Or otherwise, no policy, then go ahead. But after creating auto scaling group also, we can manage these policies. Suppose if I say the target tracking scaling policy, yes, it is asking us policy name and what is the metric type. Yes, do you want to apply that on the CPU utilization, network in or network out, or application load balancer request count per target? As we're talking that there are the different types of the rules, we can apply that on the policy. Okay, CPU utilization, target value is how much target value, that is yes, CPU percentage is reached some specific value, then warm up before including into the metric. Yes, what is the time warm up that is required to adding that instance into the metric? That means it is waiting. CloudWatch is waiting that. This is into the metric. Metric is as if the average CPU utilization it has to be calculated, right? Before we were talking that the warm up or initialization time is that is a load balancer to send the request to the instance. So it is waiting until the 2 minutes, and after the 2 minutes, the load balancer starts health checkups and health is okay. Then it's try to send the requests, forwarding the requests. But this one is, it is adding the new instance. It has to start it and it has to receive the request and it has to get ready, right? To add into that or to check the metric. That means what is the current CPU utilization on this instance. So what is the time that you want to wait it for the next metric to check it on this instance if it is the new instance is launched. And if you don't want the scaling, that means you would like to only scale out, or you don't want that scale in. That means bringing to the minimum, you don't want that. Scaling, you don't want to apply it. Then you can disable this option. The scaling to create only scale out. Only scale out it is going to apply, but scaling doesn't apply that. But if you'd like to bring that instances to the normal to save the cost, then don't apply this. So these are on the basis of application and client requirement. Only scale out policies also you can apply that without having any scaling policy. That means only increasing on the basis of the demand. But there is no decreasing. Yeah, so these are scaling policies which you can apply that. Target tracking. Target tracking is, so you are just defining that on the basis of the metric with value. Then automatically, so here we are not defining any alarms. If you just observe, we are not defining explicitly any alarms. So only we are defining the metric. On the basis of the metric, automatically either it has to be add the instance or it has to be remove the instance. Auto scaling group is going to take the decisions where we don't have the control. We want to apply the scale out or scaling, we don't have the control. So choose a desired outcome. Yes, this is the desired the metric, and leave it to the scaling policy to add and remove capacity as needed to achieve that outcome. A scaling policy is going to deciding that either to add it or remove that as needed to achieve that outcome. So this is the default policy which is available while creating auto scaling group. Are you following the points?
Good.
The properties understanding. I'll come back. We have some other policies that will come back later. But during creation initial time, so what we are talking that first choose the template. Which templates do you want to use it to launch the instances in this auto scaling group? Second one is instance launch options. What is that instance launch options? Yes, in which in which availability zone search do you want to launch it? And instance type do you want to override on the template? That is, but main is network configuration. So there are all the subnets we are taking that to data centers launching. That means high availability also we are configuring that. Next option, what we are talking that load balancer mapping. If you already attach existing load balancer, you can attach that to that existing load balancer. But now we are yesterday I was removing. Now I have just create we are creating yesterday with the same properties whatever we are understanding. Here we are defining with the target group. But in this target group, we are not manually adding the instances. That is, we are defining here. So decide how many that is required and minimum how many that is required and maximum how many it is required. We are just defining over here. Then automatically, so if you define that with this policy, so this is okay policy name and average CPU utilization, there is a metric type and a value. And instances needed to add into that metric. I don't want to wait this much time. So after the 120 seconds, so just add it into the metric console. That means new instance which has been launched. After starting, after the 120 seconds, CloudWatch starts monitoring that also into the metric. So CloudWatch is nothing but this side, right? This side we are talking that. Load balancer is nothing but this side. So once EC2 instance is added to that group, load balancer, what is the time that you want to wait it to start forwarding the request? That is, we have defined at a load balancer level, the warm-up time. But now this metric, whatever we are talking that, okay, alarm has to monitor it, the metrics, the average CPU utilization on the instances. But once instance is joined to the group, how much time does do you want to wait it to start metric collection of from this instance? That is we are defining here. Okay, so that's about metric type, average CPU utilization, and instances need. Yes, 120 seconds warm up time. Do you want to disable the scaling? And instance scaling production, yes, enable instance scaling production. So that means those instances won't be terminated. So the normally this is not required. So let's go ahead. And now here we have the notification systems. Yesterday, someone was asking that like load balancer, is it going to send the notification for us or not? No, load balance level, we don't see anywhere about the notification system. It is just load balancer is going to health checkups. It is going to use it only to decide that whether the request should be routed to that instance or not. That is a health checkups. But if the health is unhealthy, it is not going to send the notification. But here you have that auto scaling group. Whenever we are defining, yes, in case instance is added or instance is removed, yes, if you need that notifications, yes, you can define it. Let me add the notification, but notification you are adding is nothing but you need to configure, or we need to use the service that is SNS. This is the notification service. Notification service. That's like nothing big deal of that. If I already the created topic, you can use it that the existing topic. But if it is not yet created, so let me create a new topic. So whenever you are creating a topic, yes, you can define the topic name. So this is auto scaling group notification. So we are creating that the one notification system, that is SNS notification service. So with this is the name, and to whom do you want to send the email notification? Then you can define the email IDs. Yeah, I would like to send the notification to my email ID. Or anyone can share that the email ID in the chart window. Then I will define that email ID here, the way you can check it about, and you can confirm that. If the mail is already opened, then share it. Otherwise, opening the email and then it takes some time. Yes, anyone can ping that about your email ID to configure that the email notifications. Okay, good. I received that from the Ravi. I'm going to use it. Yeah, who are going to receive the email notifications? So that's we can define it here. But which events? Yes, either launching or terminating or fail to launch it or fail to terminate it. So during which time do you want to send the notification? Yes, in the auto scaling group, if any one of these events are happened, that means either instance is launched or instance is terminated and fail to launch or fail to terminate it, then we are asking that to send the email notification. So like this, you can add it to multiple notifications, but okay, we are good. And let's continue. Yeah, so that's about the overall configurations. Now let's, you can add the tag for this auto scaling group. Yes, name of this auto scaling group. This is web server, right? Web servers auto scaling group. And let me add it, yes, which environment are you going to use it? Like this, you can define the information of this auto scaling group. Yes, this is for we are using for the production environment. So like this, you can define the tags, and finally you can review it. Yes, web server auto scaling group, and this is the template version. And the network, yes, we are using these two availability zones. And instance type requirements, we didn't do any update over here. And load balancing, we are creating that. This is a load balancer with the application type as app load balancer, and this is a target group. And health checks, we are defining at EC2 level and a load balance level. And grace period time once the instance is launched, we are waiting for the 120 seconds. And additional settings, monitoring yes has been enabled. And minimum size, maximum size, and desired site. And the scaling policy, we have defined only target tracking scaling policy, and which we have defined that when it is going to execute the policy as required to maintain average CPU utilization at 50%. Scaling is also enabled. We didn't disable the scaling, right? And instances warm up time is required 120 seconds for the monitoring. So it is going to take that action either adding or removing capacity units as required. So this is dynamic. We don't have the control. That is a targeted track. So it is just internally auto scaling group is going to use that. And the notification systems we have defined. Yes. And let's go ahead and see this creating a auto scaling group. Now, Ravi, did you receive that any email notification to confirm that?
No, nothing. No.
Not yet received. Okay, anyway, so let's wait some time. Now, if you see this, like auto scaling group we have created with instances 2, but status now it is nothing, right? And a desired capacity 2, minimum 1, maximum 3. And target group has been created. Yes, one target group has been created. Yes, one target group also has been created. And now load balancer also, which you are expecting to create one, right? Yes, you see this load balancer also is creating that. And it is in the provision. But how many instances it is going to have it? Yes, now if you go back to the instances section, do you see there's the 2 instances which have been initializing? As we have defined the desired instances. So 2 instances it is launching, that's now. But these 2 are in this, if you just observe that as a high availability point of view, it has been launched in 1A and 1B. Both are not in the same availability zone. It is auto scaling group is managing that on the basis of the instances which are defined and availability zones which are specified. It is distributing. It is not launched in the same availability zone. Yesterday we were doing that manually, these things. Yeah, still that is initializing. But in the auto scaling group, okay, one thing what we need to do is let's go back to that auto scaling group and let me select this auto scaling group. Yeah, the details we can see. And yeah, this is the launch template which we are using. Networks, there are the 2 subnets. And instance type requirements, we didn't do anything. And the load balancing, and advanced configuration, tags. So all the properties, whatever we have configured, at any time you can edit it and you can change this. There are all the edit operations, you can find it. And activity also, this is very important, monitoring about instances. Yes, now in that activity notifications, ASG notification has been defined on this context. But if you go and observe this, yeah, the instances anyway it is launching. So let me event changes. Let me open that SNS notification service. So what is the service we are using for the notifications? That is separate service SNS. That is, we can say simple notification service. So ASG, or not only ASG, EC2 instances, yes, CloudWatch is going to use this notification system. We were configuring that topic, right? So while creating that auto scaling group, we are configuring the topics. Now, if you go to the topics, yes, which we have defined that ASG notification, auto scaling group notification. If I go to this notification section, and what is the subscription we have defined? Subscription pending for the confirmation from this email ID. So you have received that email, check it and open that email and accept the confirmation. Ravi, you check it that?
Yeah, looks like it went to spam. I just accepted.
Sorry, voice is I'm not able to.
No, I just accepted it. It was in spam. Okay, I just accepted.
Okay, it was in the spam. Yes, open that and confirm that.
Yeah, they did it.
Yeah, first time we receive the notification and we need to confirm it. Yes, now it has been confirmed. That means any event is happened on the auto scaling group, we get the notification to this email ID. You can create multiple subscriptions also, like multiple emails if you'd like to configure it, not only the email notification. And here the protocol is one is email which has been given, and if you'd like to trigger the websites, or if you'd like to call that AWS Lambda functions, but we have defined email triggering, but we have the different actions we can perform. Even you can send the SMS message also. So if that any event is happened on the EC2 instance, then on the base of the which kind of the subscription you have defined on the topic, we have defined the email subscription. But SMS subscription, but you need to have it yes, mobile number defining, and you need to take it like additional package for this. But don't worry. Yes, if you need it to send the email notification in the real time, yes, we can use it to this sending that message notification as well as. Or you can trigger that email notification. Yes, so this is a mail which has been confirmed for the ASG notification. Are you clear about that? The notification systems. Yeah, so now in this auto scaling group, any event is happen this kind of either launching or terminating and fail to launch or fail to terminate. So to this email ID, we'll get the notifications. And in this activity section of the auto scaling group, you can see one more option, that is activity history also. Yeah, now what are the instances which are launching? Yes, you see, it is launching that a new EC2 instance. This is one instance. This is another EC2 instance. Why it is launching? You see that some description. A user request created an auto scaling group, changing the desired capacity from 0 to 2. What is that like a desired capacity we have defined? 2 we have defined. But initially, whenever we create it, it is have the 0, right, status. So that's point of it is launching the instance. So it is increasing, and that means it is setting the 2. As a 2 instances, it is launching. Now automatic scaling, yes, we have defined one policy, right? A target tracking policy we have defined as required to maintain the average CPU utilization 50, either adding or removing, that is dynamically is going to decide by that auto scaling group, and it is waiting for that 120 seconds to add that new instance into the matrix. But we can define other policies also. I'll come back. And in the instance management section, yes, you can see that there are the 2 instances which are being launched, and they're all healthy. Today I didn't configure any manual instances. I just defined how many I need it, right? In the auto scaling group, I just defined with the template how many instances that is required for me. It is launched, and now you see this, they're all the healthy, okay? And even in the target groups also, if you see that. So this auto scaling group, what are the instances which are managing? That is managing in this target group. Yes, now this is the target group. And if I check it here, the target section, now 2 instances. Yesterday these 2 instances, we were registering manual. Now here also you can register it. Manual also you can register it. If you have that some instances which are running, yes, you can register other instances also to this group. But it should have the same configuration, then only meaning of it, right? Same application it should have it, same configuration it should have it. Yes, these 2 instances now we have launched with the auto scaling group. The remaining monitoring and health checks, yes, you can define that health checks options in the target group. Yesterday, whatever we are talking that the load balancer concepts and target groups, that is same continuing here also. But today, adding the instances to the group, we were doing through auto scaling group. Additional, that is the dynamic we are talking. But remaining load balancer concepts and target group concepts, yesterday, whatever we are understanding, that is the same. Are you clear this now?
Yes, sir.
Type that if you are following everyone. So just following that message. Just type it one time. The following complete message. Anyone is in the sleeping mode, yes, we'll make it active. Type that the following. Good. Good. Yes, all these people are active.
Sir,
Yeah, please.
sir, what is the percentage in your browser, sir?
That is
70
70%.
percentage.
70%.
What is that?
I'm just
What it
using
denotes?
I'm just using the control and the mouse use that the cursor either up or decrease because to see that the proper the
Font
string and
size. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
This is just like suppose if I increase like this, you see that I see this only particular details, but I need more information. Then I need to decrease this percentage. But if I am in the 100%, sometimes some messages I am not able to see that.
Okay.
So that's why I'm using that the browser 70% that is recommended to get it the proper all this information in the single window. Otherwise, you need to use it this like side the scroll either up or down or horizontal scroll bar. You need to use it. So that is a lot of work which you need to do. Okay, so activity side, if you just observe that it is the launched, and yes, you can see that if it is launched successfully or not. In case that instance got failed, here you can check the activity of the auto scaling group. Suppose any scaling operation is triggered or scale out operation is triggered, then it is going to give the complete cause here, and instance is added or removed. That details you can see here. So this is the important section, the activity. To keep on tracking about that in the auto scaling group, what exactly is happening. Now let's go back to the load balancer URL and we'll test this application whether we are able to access that through the load balancer. Let me take the DNS name of this load balancer. Yeah, now yes, we are able to load balancer is able to route to the target group. In the target group, we have the instances which are managing through that auto scaling group. Yeah, it is taken to from the cache. So let me use it cognito window also or a private window. Now it is routing to the same instance. I'd like to see that 1B also. Okay, let me bring it down of that 1A. Let's see this like maybe we don't have any load, right? Average CPU utilization, what we have defined the 50%. Maybe any action is triggered. Did you receive that any email notification, Ravi?
No, sir, nothing yet.
You didn't receive that. It was breaking about your voice. I'm not able to hear properly.
No,
Let me check it in the web service group. Yeah, so total 2 targets which we have, but now it is one is only healthy. That's why it is one is, you see, that's a draining. Why it is draining? So that's why. Sorry, your voice is echo. Is it only for me or is it everyone? Just or use a chat window, no problem. Because your voice is echoing and I'm not able to understand anything. Yes, you see this, it is a draining one instance. So target to deregistration process. But why it is deregistering that? Let's go and observe that activity section. Is it updated anything? Yes, you see that waiting for ELB connection draining. That is a terminated one instance. Why it is terminating is a monitor alarm target tracking this alarm. Instead, alarm is a triggered policy. There is a targeted tracking policy. This is a policy we have defined. Changing the desired capacity from 2 to 1. Why it is changing the 2 to 1? At this time, an instance was taken out of service in response to a difference between the desired and actual capacity, shrinking the capacity from 2 to 1. Yet, this time, that was selected for the termination. So that means the instance that like a desired, the CPU capacity which were defined only 50%, but we are not doing any activities. We are not running any applications. So after that, automatically, whenever it is not reached the 50%, so this is a targeted tracking policy, whatever we have defined, that is dynamically taking about it, and it is decreasing that the instance. The no email alerts, maybe you will receive it. So because now that is in the draining state, right? Whenever it is completely down, maybe you will get it that. Definitely you will receive that email notifications, but maybe check it about in the spam also. Are you clear about that? It is draining on the base of the policy, which is setting this now as a requirement point of view dynamically. It is setting the 2 to 1. That's why we are able to get it only 1. And even you can check it here in the instances section also. Let me refresh. But still 2 instances. Yeah. So now it is a trigger that is shutting down. Now maybe you will receive the notification. First it is stopping that, the load balancer, the request. And after stopping, it is marking this as shutting down. Yes, now it has been terminated one instance. So that is on the base of the current statistics which we have that on the metrics point of view. That dynamically it is going to decide that how many desired required, how many minimum required, and how many maximum required. As the utilization is very less, it has been said that the minimum is equal to desired. But still 2 instances it is showing, but now one is terminated. Now we'll come back to that instance status also the 1. So how it is updating all the things is background, it is going to use the CloudWatch. Are you clear at this point? How it is helping the dynamically managing the instances? But here we have defined that the automatic tracking. Yes, Ravi received that alert. Yes, whenever the instance is terminated and whenever that instance is, as we have defined the events. Yes, good. sharing the screenshot also. Yes, good, thank you. Yes, as the event which was triggered, any instance which is terminated or launched, immediately we will get the notification on it. But yesterday we didn't see that in the load balancer and the target groups level notification systems. We didn't see that, but auto scaling group, yes, how it is behaving that dynamically to understand it. So it has been given notification system. You can register to that SMS, you can register to that email, or you can trigger that even the HTTP or HTTPS based URLs also. In case any instance is terminated or launched new instance in the group, for all those events you will get the notification. So see here you can see the activities, for that activity, which activities it is going to send the email notification. And you can create other notifications also. Yeah, so let's talk it that automatic scaling, that is the policy which you're talking, the target tracking. This is on the basis of the current demand point of view, automatically the terminating instance or launching the instance, it is doing that. But if you'd like to control explicitly from about our side, this is a dynamic approach somewhat. Just define that metric, and that metric on the basis of adding or removing, it is deciding that. But if you'd like to control from about our side, we have that other two types of the policies. So we can say that simple scaling and step-based scaling. There are the other two types are available. But what is that simple scaling? If we just go for that, if we choose the policy type as auto scaling policy type as a simple scaling, you can define the policy name here. But here, what is the dependency? You see that alarm is the dependency. Yes, we are going to define explicit alarm. In the previous target tracking, just define that CPU metric, but we didn't define any explicit alarm for it. CloudWatch, we didn't use it. That is automatically background. The metrics, which is ALB metrics, which is sharing to the CloudWatch, and on the base of the metrics, it is taken the dynamic action. But here we can configure explicit alarm, explicit notification systems. And we can define the actions on it. That is, do you want to add the instance, or do you want to remove the instance, or do you want to set is nothing but desired. Do you want to set it to the particular desired capacity? Set it to is nothing but desired. Adding is nothing but on the current one more instance. Removing is nothing but from the current one, removing that one instance. That is scale in. This is scale out. And wait for that allowing another scaling activity. That is warm up time. But here we have the dependency on the CloudWatch alarms. Yeah, we can create CloudWatch alarms on the base of the metric. But this is a big story. I will explain this in the CloudWatch section. How to create alarms, how to define the alarms, and what is the metric, and how to choose the metrics. That's I will come back later on the CloudWatch section. But here, yes. So whenever we are talking to the policies, default policy, whenever we are creating it is allowing that target tracking. But you can just define that average, that's metric with the target value, only that. But you cannot define how many instances do you want to add it, or how many instances do you want to remove it. We don't have any explicit configuration. But if I go for the simple scaling, yes, you can define that about our CloudWatch alarm. Here also CloudWatch alarm is nothing but that CPU average utilization configuration. So that is 70% or 80%. Thus you can define it in the CloudWatch alarm if that particular alarm is triggered. So it is given that read capacity units limit to write capacity units limit. So there is a network level. Yeah, we can define this alarm. If that alarm is triggered, That means average CPU utilization I have configured the 70%. Then I would like to add it 2 more instances. Yes, you can define it. Or you can define the percentage wise also. So already in the group we have some like 50 instances. Then I would like to add it some 20% of additional instances. That means 10 more instances which will be added to the group. So do you want to apply that the percentage based or units based? Units is number of. Or like that, you have that scaling policy you have defined in the alarm. Then you would like to remove the instances. Then how many instances do you want to remove it? Or do you want to remove that on the basis of the current percentage? Yeah, this is the simple scale. That means scale out we can define, scale in also we can define on the basis of the alarms. But another one which we have this is advanced to the simple scaling. First one is dynamic. We don't have a control. Second one is simple scaling. This is, yes, you can define that. CloudWatch alarm, that is CPU utilization 70%. Okay, add the instance. And create one more loop. That is for the scaling. That is, what is the CloudWatch alarm? If the CPU utilization is 30%, then remove the instances. That's you can control it explicitly in the simple scaling. On the basis of the alarm, you can take the action. But what is the step scaling is, this is advanced to the simple scaling. Here also you need to define the alarm in the CloudWatch. If the alarm is triggered, suppose 70% of the utilization you have defined and that alarm is triggered. Then take that action. Do you want to add it or remove it or set it to? Okay, I would like to add it. But how many instances that we want to add it? Okay, one instance I would like to add it. How many capacity of the units? Yes, I would like to add it one instance. But we need to define this alarm also here. Let me choose it to this default alarm. So now what it is saying that, what is that alarm it is having is, the alarm threshold consume the read capacity units is greater than or equal to 240 for 5 consecutive periods. 5 consecutive times and 60 seconds if it is continuing that. That's 240 read operations. Then we are saying about it one more unit added. But I have this one more concept, that is, let's say that this is between the 240. But between the 242, that's something 260 read units which have been performed. So this is between that 240 to 260. I'm using that one added. But it is crossed the 260 more than that. That means load is increasing more. Then I can define that, okay, that's load is increasing. I need to handle that. Yes, 260 to that infinity. That means now the current read capacity units is between the 260 to that between. Then it is going to take that action, adding the 2 instances. So if the units range is in that between, then it is triggering that the scale out action, adding that 1 instance. But still load is increasing. Now it is reached after adding this one also, still load is reached, but units capacity is read capacity units is still increasing. That is between that 260 is greater than that. Then I need to handle the controlling. Still it is increasing that. Then go for adding 2 or 10 instances more. So this is about step. Now we are defining the range based, right? Range between this one to this one action, and range after crossing this one also still load is increasing. Then take that this action, that is adding. These are all the adding actions. Are getting the point of the step? So this is step based. Between this range, one action. Next range, another action. Like that, next range, another action. Like that, we can define it. Suppose CPU utilization is between that 70 to 80%. One instance added. After adding also, still is increasing that CPU utilization. That is reached the 80%. Okay, 80 to 90%. If I added one instance, that is load is not sufficient, then we need to go for that 2 more instances. That means 80 to 90% is reached average CPU. We should not wait until 100, right? If it is reached 100, yes, we see that the crashes of the servers. So after defining the 70 to 80 also, still it is reached that 80 to 90 it is reached. Okay, add it more instances. Even the 90 is also crossed. Then go for that one more action. So on the base of the load controlling, step-based we can define it between the 70 to 80. Okay, somewhat cool. Okay, let's add the 2 instances. But after adding the 2 also, still load is increasing. 80 is crossed. Then go for that 80 to 90%, another step defining that. Or 80 to 85% if you need more. Okay, 3 instances added. Still it is increasing, 85 to the 90. Then define one more step. Like that, you can control the load which is happening on the systems. That is by using step-based scale. Interesting, right? How the real time, the load can be managed. Yes or no? This is interesting or not? Type that interesting. How the applications are managing in the real world with the cloud features. If it is on premises, we cannot handle all these things. That's why everyone is coming into the cloud infrastructure, especially this feature. We cannot predict the load. Type that if you feel interesting. Type interesting. These policies, the auto scaling group policies. Yeah, good. Okay, so that's about automatic scaling, which we can configure it and we can manage that the instances the here on the base of the metric. But CloudWatch has to be defined. So let me quickly go for this defining the metric, but I'll talk it this CloudWatch metric later. Suppose I'm going to select this the metric that is on EC2 by auto scaling group. And what is the metric we are looking at? CPU utilization. So this is the metric I'm going to choose that. If the CPU utilization on these EC2 instances, which are defined the auto scaling group name is this auto scaling group, and average if it is continuing the 5 minutes. But what is the threshold? I would like to define that 70% is the threshold. So if the CPU utilization is reached the greater than 70%, and if it is continuing the 5 minutes of the CPU utilization, then go to the next option and you can define the notification alarms. Yes, do you want to send the notification? Yes, select an existing SNS topic already which you are using that auto scaling group, and any event which is happened, alarm is triggered, then to this email ID will get the notification. And auto scaling action. So what are the actions that you want to perform it? No, I don't want to define that actions here. I would like to define that actions in the auto scaling group itself. We'll come back. Yeah, let's go to the next and give this alarm name. This is scale out CPU with a 70%. Some name which you can define it. And let's go for this next. Yeah, now what is the threshold we have defined? 70% threshold has been defined on this auto scaling group name. So let's create alarm. Yeah, initially insufficient data is showing that because CloudWatch now, it is going to request to that auto scaling group to get that all the metrics. But what is the refresh interval by default we have is 5 minutes. So in the free type edition, if you don't want that any, the payment options, what is the updating between the auto scaling group to this CloudWatch? The metrics updating, it takes the 5 minutes time. Then after the 5 minutes, you see that the status of the CloudWatch is it is going to get the metrics. And if the metrics under control, the CPU utilization is the less than 70%, then it says that alarm is okay. Or if it is greater than 70%, then alarm will be triggered. Now with auto scaling group, how you can use it, that alarm is, let's go to that. Let me show that step scaling policy. This is a scale out policy. Which CloudWatch alarm? Yes, this is the scale out CPU 70% is reached, so which are defined. It is continuing 5 minutes. Then what is the action? I would like to add one instance to my group. But do you want to define the 70 to that infinity? No, I would like to define that the 70 to 80% if it is in this control, then I would like to use it one instance. But even after adding this instance also, now this alarm is keep on triggering and it is reached at the 80% now. Okay, I would like to add it one more instance, but 80 to 90% between that one more instance. And if it is greater than the 90%, then I would like to add it to some more 4 instances. So like that, you can define that. And the scaling policies, yes, now I have defined this a scaling policy, that is a scale out. Like that, you can define the scaling policy also. Scaling policies, you need to create separate alarm for it. You need to create separate alarm for it. The scale in CPU is some 30% or whatever the metric that is required for that application. That metric based scale out policy, scaling policy, you need to define it. Then come to here and use it. The step scaling required or simple scaling is required. Then select that alarm, that is scale in alarm. Then what is the action you can take it? You can perform the remove action in the scaling. And you can define that if it is a particular 30 to 25 to 30% or 20 to 25%, then you can define that the steps if it is a step based. Yeah, the step only it supports step. If it is simple scaling, then only you can define either add or only one option. Are you clear at this point? Yeah, it was static one instance. Now we have only one instance, but yes, as per this area has been defined. Now I don't want that target tracking. I can remove this one. Actions. So you can disable it or you can delete it. Then now I have defined only step scaling. This is for the scale out operation. Like the scaling also I can define it. Then I can manage that dynamically the instances either adding or removing. So this is one important concept in the auto scaling group. Then which instances are running, you can see that all the instances information here and monitoring options. Yes, that's metrics, whatever we are talking that. That is minimum group size, maximum group size, desired capacity, in service, now how many instances are there, and pending instances, which are anything, standby instances, terminating instances, total instances, so far. Yeah, all those metrics which you can monitor it here in the monitoring tab. And another important and interesting concept, not only interesting, it is important in the real time. Suppose now what is the requirement is, okay boss, we have launched the instances, we are good, which is running the T2 micro. But there is a requirement changing this type of instance in this group from the T2 micro to something, the T2 large. Everyone, are you able to follow me?
Sir, sometimes voice is not reachable, sir. Is it my problem or all are listening? I don't know, but
Okay, maybe check it about your network if it is about your problem. Anyone is facing that same issue?
that issue I want to know, but no one is responding.
No. We are able to hear the voice, sir voice.
Okay.
Okay, that's maybe you check it from about your side. Okay, so last but not the least, one more important concept, let me talk it that. Suppose now we have the T2 micro instance, but as a requirement point of view, we need to change the type of instance T2 micro to T3 micro. T2 small, some other type of instance. T3, if you go further, that is additional charge, more cost. But just go for the T2 micro to T2 small. Then how do you apply this change? Without having any downtime of the application. Application should not be down. That means users are accessing. But you need to do that the background upgrading about your instances from one type to another type. How do you do that? But at least now we have this only one instance, right? Now let's go for that. First, let me define that auto scaling group. The desired, it is set that the one as a dynamic approach point of view. Now I'd like to make it at least two instances. If I'm going to apply that, you can change it to these properties dynamically. Immediately that will be reflected. So suppose suddenly you see that all the instances are reached the maximum. Then you can go and edit that and you can increase the maximum size. Then on the base of the scaling scale out, yes, it is going to apply that. Now I need that minimum and desired both are the same. That is at least two instances that is required to update it, right? If I'm doing that updating activity without having any downtime, one instance is there, I cannot do that. But if I may have that at least two instances, yes, now it is trying to launch. That's one more thing. Then without having any downtime, anyone is accessing this load balancer URL without having any downtime. Now I can manage that, the upgrading of that instances. So let's wait for that, the bring back, that's 1B also. Is it launched this in 1B or 1A? Yes, it is launched to 1B. That is taking the time. As we have defined that 120 seconds, that is 2 minutes it is waiting. Yes, now it has come back to that. Both systems are running. Right? Okay, now how do we upgrade it? Now T2 micro, the client, the first initially we have used, but client is asking now, was that capacity is not enough? Okay, go ahead to migrate that to T2 small. But already application is running, but without giving any downtime, do that upgrade. How do you do that? Yeah, now let's go to that template. What is requirement now? First template is input, right? So let's modify the template. I'm going to create a version as a 4. But what is the requirement? T2 micro has to be migrated to the T2 small. The remaining key pairs and remaining all the stuff, it's okay. Yes, now migration, whatever that's required, the template I have modified. And let me set up that the fourth as a default one. That means, what is that action? Create new version. No. Set to default version. Yes. What is the default version? Now I would like to use it. Fourth one as a default version. That means any instances I'm going to launch with this template current version, that is a 4. Yeah, the fourth version. As a fourth version configuration that will be applied. What is the fourth version configuration which were defined in the template? This is important. Without having any downtime, how do we upgrade about your instances the background? With auto scaling group, load balancer, high availability. Yes, template is ready, the fourth version, and what is that? Like a T2 small. But now instances are running, which were launched with a T2 micro. But now this, without having any downtime of that application, we need to migrate it to the T2 small. So how do you do that activities? Once template is ready, let's go to the auto scaling group and select that auto scaling group and go to that instance refresh section. So here you can start the instance refresh. Instance refresh. So let me start up that. So what is the minimum healthy percentage in the group during updating? You are refreshing the instances. That is old instances you are terminating and new instances you are launching that. This one we can say that rolling update. So I need to have that at least 50% of the health. That means two instances we have. Two instances, the one instance make sure that is ready is nothing but 50%, right? 50% at least healthy, I am expecting that. That is on the basis of the number of instances which you have. You can apply that, whether it can be the percentage based. Suppose you have that something 3 instances, 60% if you depend that. 2%, 2 instances, it is going to make sure that is available, and 1 instance which is going to do the refreshing background. And instance warm up time. And the remaining, yes, you can just go ahead the default. And rollback settings, anything which are required, we don't have. So let's apply that instance refresh. So what it is going to do that is, one instance will be taken as a 50% as a availability. Now the load balancer is going to route to that only one instance the load, which is available in the background. That means user is not impacted. User is able to access the application. But now it is routing to the only one instance. Fine. But background, what's happening? Let's check it, the background. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Is it
sir.
audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was disconnected. Sorry, the network may be dropped. Fine. Now, if you come back to here and if you just watch it, that instance refresh, how it is going on. 2 instances left to update. Yes, still that's 2 instances we have to update it. And the history, you see that in progress, waiting for instances to warm up before continuing that. Yeah, so it is started that the refreshing the instances, the background, but load balancer is not down. So we are able to access the application. User is able to access the application. And it is started that the refresh, but it takes on the base of the warm-up times and metrics. 2 instances left to update. Let me open this instances also in another tab. Yes, now you see that we have the T2 micro 2 instances which are there, and T2 small one in new instance has been launched. as per the latest template which are configured as that requirement point of view, whatever the migration that is required, T2 to the T2, T3, we were doing that at the backend template we have configured. Once template is ready, that template is taken by the auto scaling group, and as we have defined the refresh percentage, at least 50% to make sure, yes, it is going to use the 2 instances, but 1 instance before it is launching. You see that? That's why it is able to forward the request to the 1A and 1B sometimes, right? Yeah, now it is routing to the only 1A. That is load balancer, health checks intervals, and the refresh, if you observe that, yes, it is started 2 instances left to update, 25% it is taking. Still that 1 instance is in the progress. And if you observe that instances section, okay, 1 more instance also is launching that, but we'll see this finally terminations. Wait for that. So first it is doing that, the new instances launching, which are required the desired with the latest configuration. This one T2 small, this one also T2 small. These are all just initialized. One is in 1A and second one is in 1B. High availability is following that. As a multi-availability zone, it is following auto scaling group. We are applying that demands to handle that on demand. On the basis of the CPU utilization or workload, you can define it. And now without having any downtime, the background that to the front-end user, without having any downtime of that application with the load balancer, we are doing the background upgrading about that, the instances also. But it takes on the basis of warm-up times we have defined in the load balancer level and as well as instance metrics level. All that points will be considered. And yes, it takes some time, but finally we see that updating the instances without having any downtime. Now you see that, okay, this was before itself terminated. Yes, T2 micro instance is shutting down now. Now the T2 small, they're all ready. One is ready with the load balancer, and but still this is initialization state itself. But even though once it is ready, as a 50% we have defined, then another instance, the older version of that, it was starting to terminate it. Do you see the beauty of this, right? The cloud features. Now it has been terminated, 1 instance. And now if you refresh about our scaling, the refreshing the state, yes, 1 instance left to update it. One, it is done. Now the 1 more instance. In that 1 more instance also, new instance is ready with the latest configuration. Yes, now this T2 small is also the ready. And whenever it is identified by the load balancer, then it starts to shutting down this another instance, which is a older template version. Are you clear at this point? Is it interesting? No response, everyone is silent.
Yes, sir. I typed in the chat box.
Okay.
So this is vertical scaling, right, sir?
No. This is not the vertical
Increasing
scaling.
the size, increasing the.
Yeah, fine. This is the, we can say that.
Micro to T2 small.
No, this is not only 1 instance. We have the multiple instances. Scaling point of view, we say that horizontal scaling. But in that horizontal scaling, we are doing the migration.
Okay. Means we are changing the instance type, na sir. So
even that instance type, if we change it also, this is not comes under vertical scaling. So this is within the horizontal scaling itself. You are doing that, applying the configuration changes to the instances. Vertical scaling is nothing but you should have only one instance.
Okay.
As we are talking that active and passive. One will be active and second one will be passive. If you have that approach, and if you are increasing the size or you are decreasing the size, that's we say that vertical scaling. But here we have the number of instances. I'm just upgrading.
Okay.
Yeah, now the second instance is also done. That has been terminated. And now if you go back to that, the refreshing this. So now we see this once load balancer is identified, the second instance also, and unregistered that, then we see that 100% success. Yeah, one instance termination was done, update was done. Yeah, so that is done almost. Yes, it's completed. Now if you go back to that, those two instances that I have been terminated. Now, yes, I have the only T2 small instances. But end user level, there is no impact to him. Now it is forwarding to that 1A and 1B. Two instances are registered with the load balancer. Yeah, so this is the concept for today about auto scaling group and with the policies. An auto scaling group important attributes while configuration time, launch template importance. If you would like to upgrade the changes, and scaling policies, that is a target tracking policy, simple policy, step-based policy. And activity, yes, instances launching or terminating, all that you can monitor it and you can track it in the auto scaling group tracking section. So finally, if we just talk it that auto scaling group, which is defined in the target group, and this target group is routing through the load balancer. So auto scaling group is just for dynamically to manage the instances. Suppose if I set this auto scaling group to the 0, what's going to happen there? What's going to happen there? Suppose I have the maintenance activities, I need to shut down all the instances. Then set to the 0 about your capacity. Then automatically all the instances that will be shut down. Yeah, if you wait some time, yes, as like draining time. This is the draining time, we'll say that. As per the draining time, the instances are available. Yesterday we were talking that. Load balancer, from the load balancer immediately, it is not going to unreached, right? If it is any request which is a processing, it has to wait some time to complete those requests. So after the draining time which is defined, then that will be unregistered from the load balancer. Then once it is unregistered, then from the target group, the action which will be performed. But 0 is nothing but that is, yes, I don't want that any instances in the group. Suppose you have some like a reserved instances. Reserved instances as a static instances which you can manage it always. But auto scaling group is also added, but during the load time only you can use it auto scaling group, and the remaining time you can use it about your constant reserved instances. So with the static instances and as well as dynamic instances, you can manage it about your target. Fine, anyway, it talks about it, the terminating all the instances on the basis of that activity. Yeah, so there are the points that so we can understand it from the auto scaling group. So now the load balancer is available, target group is available. Within the target group, static wise or dynamic wise instances, how you can manage it, we were understanding. But what about this URL? Are you going to give this URL to the clients? No, right? So the next tomorrow, what we are going to starting about it is, so these URLs, how to manage it with the DNS. That is a Route 53 concept which is available. So the domain names we can take it and we can use it, the domain name mapping to this load balancer URL. That means riseandshine.technologies.com. If I hit it, backend this load balancer which will be loaded. And this load balancer is going to route to the backend EC2 instances where that application is running. Yeah, that's how to configure the domain mapping to the load balancer. That's we will talk it tomorrow. Is it clear to everyone, the concepts today? Still it is not taken activity. So it is not updated here. But still that is showing that updating capacity. Yeah, so it is taking that waiting for training connection. These two instances are terminating as we have set up that minimum 0, maximum 0, desired also 0. Yes, it is started that activity, but it is taking some time to perform it. That is a 5 minutes the training period. Okay, cool. So that's all for today. So any queries, questions, please let me know. So let's delete it all the stuff. The first auto scaling group. Then target groups. Okay, it is getting used by the load balancer. So let me delete the load balancer. That is getting referred. Okay, so it is done and automatically instances also will be terminated. No issues. Auto scaling group, whenever you delete it, automatically the instances also will be terminated. If you are registered manually, then those instances you need to delete it here. But with the auto scaling group, any instances which have been launched in the target group, then whenever you delete the auto scaling group, automatically the instances also will be terminated here. You don't need to explicitly terminating the instances. Yeah, so these are all the points for today. Understanding one of the important and interesting concept, that is ASG with the load balancer. I try to practice it and work it on it. And tomorrow we'll talk about the domain mapping with the load balancer. Thank you. Thank you all. That's all from my side. Thank you for your time. Waiting up to this time. Yes.